Okay, done. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. For some of you, this is a little bit of a newer conversation, and for others, like Bill, I apologize. Just a second.
Hey, we've all been there.
But how we get it back.
Sorry about that. So it'll be a newer conversation, and other of you like Bill, just kind of talking about where we were a couple of years ago when we first talked versus today, and some of the work we're doing, and specifically with Galaxy. So with that, I have a couple of colleagues of mine on the phone today. So Chris Broshears is on the call, and Chris, when we get to the portion of Galaxy and the integration, Chris will walk through that with us. And I think, Bill, you met Chris before, and some of the work we're doing, and with them. And then also Chris Pohl is on the phone, and Chris will take us through a demo of Seats, which is our price recommendation portal. So I thought it might be helpful just to have a quick refresher to kind of set a baseline today for dynamic pricing and what we do. And then we'll talk about the gateway integration, the demo, and then I thought it also might be helpful to look at some case studies and some upcoming implementations that we have going on too. And then Jay, we can talk about the opportunity analysis overview. So that's what I have for today. So just to kind of refresh you guys on who we are, our expertise is in dynamic pricing. And so what we do is we develop customized, they're automated, which is very important to this conversation, dynamic pricing solutions or algorithms. And the purpose of those algorithms are to align prices with projected demand on any given day. And so when initially when we were talking about, having the conversations, it was strictly around Garden Glow, which I think, wonderful opportunity. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that we did with Cincinnati Zoo. But we're also broadening the conversation as well to talk about Missouri Botanical in general for your general admission, as well as possibly the butterfly as well. So, but each of our solutions, we have a team of PhD economists. We have 4 and about to hire 5, which is really our secret sauce to develop these customized algorithms based on your needs. Again, we have the price management portal Seats to give you complete visibility on what our price recommendations are. And then as you can see, we can price all different ticket types and product types, whether it's, for all of our attractions, we provide start prices or the beginning prices for any engagement in each year. If there are combo tickets you guys have, I know you guys have special exhibits. And I think even with Garden Glow, you have time ticketing, so we certainly can do that, and any other kind of things that, these are the things that we do. The way our service works, it is full service. So once a contract is signed, you are assigned a project manager, an account manager who's your day-to-day person. So it either be Chris or somebody from his team. And then also a PhD economist is also assigned to your account. So there's ongoing oversight with your account, and we're highly accountable to your whatever your key performance indicators are. And typically what we see in the first year is anywhere between 8 to 20% lift when the primary objective is revenue maximization. So that's just a little bit of a refresher and a background on us. Some of the clients we work with are, you guys are obviously familiar with the Indianapolis Zoo, and they're on Gateway and Double Knot. We were just hired by and retained by the Cincinnati Zoo. We did a pilot for them with their version of Garden Glow, and then now they're transitioning, and it was very successful. We'll talk about that, and they're on Gateway. And they're going to be going all general admission with us starting in a few weeks. But anyway, these are some of the clients that we work with. So it's really a variety of, most of these are kind of single operations, and but we're proud of the work that we've done over the last couple of years. We've really grown significantly. Not only in our work with attractions, but we've also worked with quite a few performing arts organizations as well. And I'll go into some examples of some of the work that we're doing specifically with these folks. But I thought it would also be helpful just to provide sort of a baseline of the kind of work that we do. And I like to communicate it in this kind of pyramid. As terms of a pricing strategy for attractions. So the most common form of pricing strategy for attractions today is a static or a fixed price. So for instance, you guys are at $12 for your general admission. And our feeling with that is there are many days that you may undercharge because you have, there might be overcrowding or long queues, and there are other days where you're probably undercharging, and so that's sort of our kind of base theory with static pricing. The next one is variable pricing, which is I think what you're doing right now with Garden Glow. So there are going to be, some static pricing tiers for the day of admission. So the walk-up price may have different prices for different, different days or different times of days. It's still a static price. And then the next one is dynamic discounting, which isn't that popular, but I thought I'd at least provide a definition of that. So that's where there is a static day of admission. So, let's say you're at $12 as your static admission price, but then there are some, dynamic pricing underneath that, but there's a ceiling of $12. And so where we come in and what primarily our clients do is algorithmic dynamic pricing, where our prices are always being aligned with projected guest demand using a lot of different factors. And with that, we're able to capture that full value of advance tickets as well as day of admission. So hopefully that's helpful just in terms of setting the stage.
Harry?
Yeah.
This is Bill. A great slide. I think this helps explain the different pricing formats. The 8 to 20% revenue lift that you say is typical.
Yes.
Is that mostly from a static pricing basis, yes, all the way up to the algorithmic dynamic pricing?
Yeah. So typically, on the higher range, if it's somebody who's going from a static price and maybe hasn't paid too much attention to their pricing over the years, that's where that is. Where if there's some, price changes, then that's where, it's going to decrease a little bit. But I can show you some specific examples as well. In the case of the Indianapolis Zoo, it was, much higher than that. But typically what we see, and this is, Bill, this is really across the board, not just with attractions, but with performing arts and the other industries that we work with, is typically 8 to 20%. So, yeah, but good question. Good question. And so just to put a fine point on the algorithmic dynamic pricing is just, it aligns price with demand, and a few things that I want to show you on this. And you're actually doing, in theory, you're doing this with Garden Glow with variable pricing, but what the Indie Zoo does, and many of our clients do, is they give their consumers choice and control on when to come. So in this case, and none of our clients ever call it dynamic pricing. It's pick your day, pick your price, pick your package. And so the second thing that I think is interesting on this is all prices are subject to change until they lock in their price on buying online. So, the price today for July 4th weekend, being it's February 7th or February 8th, I guess, is going to be drastically different probably than it would be, as we get closer to July 4th. So once you lock in that price, they're getting the best rate. And just the whole idea with this calendar is to provide complete transparency to the guest, and so they are, they feel good about, having a lot of kind of a whole big constellation of choices on when to come and what they're going to pay. And so kind of the idea is that each day is a unique price and is going to be priced accordingly. And then the algorithm can really identify each day as to what that price should be. And it really helps align those advanced prices and the day of prices over time. And what our clients will tell you, by moving to full dynamic pricing, it really helps them have a lot more strategic flexibility. So if they're just locked into a static price, they're locked into that price. But with dynamic pricing, because we're looking at the data on a day-to-day basis, we're able to adjust those prices based on the most current data there is, and make those price recommendations. So just wanted to kind of set the stage on that. So I thought it would be helpful to, as we get into the more technical conversation, talk about how the algorithm is developed on the front end. And then once it's launched, we'll get into more of the Galaxy conversation. So the first thing we would ask for in any engagement is we will ask for 3 years of historical data, and we have a specific data set that we call for. And then Chris Brochures, is that something that we pull out of Gateway or the client provides us?
Yeah, we'll talk in a moment about the interface that we've developed with Gateway, but it is now just a matter of installing the interface and using that to pull the historical data that we need.
Okay, great. Okay, so we would pull out the 3 years of historical data. So that's number one. The second thing, which is probably the most heavy lifting on your end, is answering what we have, what are called scoping questions, and they come from our economists. And it's typically around 25 questions, really kind of wrapped around your business and what your goals are. And so once we get those answers back, those answers really help determine the architecture and the customization of the algorithm. Typically, we're also going to have other questions based on the answers. That's pretty typical. But this is a really important part of the development of the algorithm. And then from there, once we have answers to those, then our economists will start building the algorithm. They're going to be putting in a lot more factors and variables, which we'll go over in the next slide. And then from there, the dynamic pricing is launched. So I just thought it'd be helpful to see what the front end looked at before anything launches for you guys. And then
Quick question.
yeah.
Quick question on that one, Harry. So for the historical data, do you pull most of the clients with Gateway that you guys have worked with? Do they have the membership portion of that, or the membership portal of Gateway, or a different membership source?
So is your question, are we asking for membership data? And
yeah, how do you factor that in here?
So the interface we use that Gateway provides gives us all manner of sales records from Galaxy. So if you have membership sales and membership usage recorded in Galaxy, we'll get that as part of the interface. But I thought you might be asking about a different source of membership data, perhaps?
Yeah, a lot of our membership data is not stored in Galaxy. Right now we use Razor's Edge, and really it's just, there's not a lot of historical data in there regarding members. I may not be stating that correct. Bill, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, what we don't have is the identity stored in Galaxy. We have a number of PLUs, some of which are for the general public, some of which for a pricing district that we're in, and some of which are for members. So within the sales data in Galaxy, we have information about the number of membership type tickets we sold, by day, by hour, by whatever. But we just don't know who it is that bought those things.
And the who it is not important to us as if we can get to
Got it.
The sales transaction information would be in Razor's Edge or Gateway.
The
Gateway.
sales transaction is in Gateway, but it's essentially anonymous relative to the membership.
That's fine then. As long as we can see in Galaxy data the records of membership sales, and the memberships have unique identifiers. Obviously, they may not have names attached, but we can tell one membership from another. So
yeah, typically you might be able to, but within our data, I don't think you'll be able to.
Really?
And it gets into the details of how we're connected to Razor's Edge. I don't know if we want to go there right now or not, but
yeah, we don't need to, and that's the sort of thing that we would get our data analysts involved in to understand. I'm sure the data is available. It's just a question of if we don't get it through the Galaxy interface, then how do we get that? Sounds like a solvable problem.
yeah.
Okay.
That's if you want to personalize the data.
And we don't really want any personal identifying information about your members, so
Yeah.
that won't be an issue.
Yep.
Okay. Good. All right. We're just about to the gateway. I just wanted to show you, because we get this question a lot, is what are this certainly isn't an exhaustive list, and sometimes we don't use all these. We may use others, but this is just a sample of some of the factors that we use and how the algorithm thinks about arriving at the optimal price. So we're going to look at things like the school calendars. Weather is a really big input into the algorithm. We're going to look at competitive attractions and any kind of value proposition that you might have. We want to know your marketing expenditure. All of these things are factors and then variables underneath that go into the algorithm. And so then the algorithm is going to evaluate three things. The first one is it's always looking at projected demand. So we're looking, if it's a general admission client, we're looking at the entire year and projecting the demand for those particular days. And then the price elasticity is, what's the how broad can the prices be, and the consumer sensitivity to those prices, any kind of how that substitution effects from moving from one day to the other. So from there, that's where it comes up with the optimal price. So I thought that may be helpful just to understand how the algorithm works for coming up with a particular price for a particular day. So here's how kind of an illustrative view of the integration, and I am going to let Chris Broshears take it from here.
So one of the most important changes in our relationship with Gateway since the last time we talked is we have formed a formal partnership with them, and they've developed an interface that they support for Digonex. And I want to just spend a couple moments explaining how that works, and then I'll take any questions you might have about it. The interface that they've created, it has two components, both of which reside on your Galaxy server ends. There's a set of database stored procedures that they install to actually perform the export of data to us and the import of pricing data from us, and then an FTP utility that they've created to send the files. These are CSV files that we exchange back and forth with Digonex's secure FTP server. So once a day, the procedure will run to export to Digonex all of the previous day's data in CSV form for sales and scans and, if applicable, inventory. That's the data that gets fed into our algorithms. Again, for the collection of historical data, we just run that same procedure over a longer time frame. We can run it for a day, we can run it for an entire year if needed to pull historical data. So we get that data in on a daily basis, run that through our algorithms, generate the price recommendations. You're going to see our seats pricing portal in a few minutes, where you can view our recommendations and act on them. And then once you've defined your new prices, you publish those prices, and that triggers us to write a price export file that Gateway then picks up. Their FTP utility goes to our server, picks up this file, and processes in the prices. So what we're providing in that price file is a list of PLUs, prices for those PLUs, and dates, times that those prices are valid. In Galaxy, your Gateway consultant who works with you on the installation and setup of the interface will show you how to set up price programs. That's how this works on the Galaxy end. They use price programs to determine, to set specific prices for PLUs on different dates or at different times. So that's part of their service of installing and supporting the interface. What questions might you have about the interface and how all that works?
So, Chris, I would assume that the output side from Gateway Ticketing is a scheduled event, and you get it at midnight or whatever the time is.
It is. They schedule. It's two separate schedules. It's a SQL agent job that gets scheduled in SQL Server to perform the export, and then a scheduled FTP job to send us that file.
Okay. And then it's available for review. And so presumably someone's got to put eyes on whatever the recommendation is.
You don't have you don't have to put eyes on our recommendations. By default, the behavior is once we've received the data, we've run our algorithms and generated our prices. By default, our price recommendations require action from a user before they are implemented. Some of our clients have elected to bypass that review step. They trust our recommendations and don't feel the need. They still have the option to review them, but
Right.
for them, we have configured the system such that their review is not required. If they don't log in and affirm one action or the other on each price change, then we are to go ahead and push our recommended prices.
Gotcha. So the action by human, let's imagine that we're in a default mode where someone's got to look at the stuff or someone has to provide some action. I guess there's a button somewhere in the portal that says accept.
Yeah. Harry, we're doing a demo, right? We're going to see that in a moment. Yeah, that's exactly what there is.
Okay. All right. So then the timing of someone doing that, does that control the timing of when the data comes back into Galaxy?
We'll actually schedule, so we can set it up such that when the user of our seats portal clicks a publish button, that those prices would be immediately sent to Galaxy. We have that capability. That is not how we recommend setting things up, though. We recommend that you implement your price changes at a time when there are unlikely to be patrons trying to buy tickets. You don't want guests to have that experience, if you can help it, of I'm trying to buy a ticket and the price changes out from under me. So usually what we'll do is we may push the file to the gateway server right away, but on the gateway side, I mentioned the export jobs and how those are scheduled. It's a similar thing for the import routines as well. There's a scheduled connection to Digonex to pull the file, and then a scheduled processing of that file to update the prices. So regardless of when we push the file, you can control when it's processed by the scheduling of those jobs on the gateway side.
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
What, if any, other questions might there be about?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, are there any other questions on this, Bill, or should we go to the demo?
I'd like to see it, I guess.
Okay, great. All right. So again, and then Chris Paul, you can.
Yep.
Yeah. You can take it over. There you go. All right.
So they just talked about the gateway integration, and then this is how you'll, we pull in that data into our system, we spit out the new recommendations, and then how you approve our prices or don't approve or override our prices is based in our Seats portal. It is a web-based tool, so you don't have to install anything. You don't have to, if we make upgrades to the system, you don't have to do anything. Everybody on your side that is a designated Seats user will get a training on how to use it, although it's very simple, and they'll get a username and password. So if someone has access to the internet, they have access to do their Seats review. And we'll put this in a review cycle that fits for you. So if you want your price recommendations every day at 10 a.m., you can have them every day at 10 a.m., and they can be in the review the entire day. But on a 24-hour cycle, we'll be pulling in the data from Gateway and pushing it back out. So we'll be getting new, fresh information every day, which could inform our price recommendations. But this is the default view that you would see. We keep track of whoever is logged in on the client side. And then this is what you see when prices are available. You'll see all the days that you're open listed. I just picked some random ones here to put in a review to show you for a demo. And then you have, next to each date, you have two columns called changes. And this is if we're making a price recommendation for that particular day during this review cycle. So if it's highlighted in green, it means we're recommending a price increase. If it's highlighted in the pinkish red, it means we're recommending a price decrease. And the number relates to the number of ticket types that we're making the recommendation up or down for that day, depending upon what we're pricing. If the changes column doesn't have anything highlighted, it means our recommendation during this review cycle is to not change the price, or I'm going to say the recommendation is the current price. But this gives you kind of a broad overview of what's happening in the review cycle right here, but then you'll also see on the far right is this countdown clock. And as Chris Brochures just mentioned, the default action, if you don't do anything with our recommendations during the review cycle, is that it will reject all of our recommendations, so nothing will change in Gateway. I think 100% of our attractions clients right now have moved to accept without doing a review. So at the end of the countdown clock, if they haven't looked at our price recommendations, it still accepts our recommendations. But at the beginning, it's always set, the default is always set to reject our recommendations. So at the end of this countdown clock, when the review cycle closes, then everything would be rejected and nothing would update unless someone did a review. And I'll show you how that's done now. So below the countdown clock, you'll see the view, and on the far right is the detailed view for a particular day. So when you click on that detailed view, it gives you the information about that day's, the date, the time that you open. It also has the expected weather for that day. And then below the weather are the ticket types that we're pricing. And in this case, I've just combined adult senior. But then you'll see with that other information that we're pulling out of Gateway. So you'll see the sales that have happened since your last review. On the left-hand side of the slash are the total number of sales that have happened since your last review. If this was a daily cycle, that means that's the number of sales that happened yesterday. And then on the right are the total number of sales that have happened since this ticket became available to the public. And then if we're doing anything with capacity numbers, we would be putting that information here. Most of our attractions, that we've just set it to, you can handle, 5,000 or 10,000 in a day. And so the solution knows that as a capacity constraint. So we're not really holding inventory numbers. That's something that's showing here for some of our seated venues that we do pricing for. But if you wanted a capacity number in here, we could do that and subtract out the sales from that number as you were doing sales.
Do you get the capacity number from Gateway, or you say you could put it somewhere? We keep capacity.
Sure, we could put that in there for display just to show you what's left, if that's what you wanted. We could pull that. But
we don't have to re-enter capacity information in Digonex. It comes from Galaxy.
Right. Yeah, we would be pulling that information out.
Gotcha.
And then the next two columns are the min and max parameters. So simply put, the minimum is the lowest you're willing to sell this ticket for. The maximum is the highest you're willing to sell this ticket for. And those can change based on time of year, if it's peak or off-peak season. A lot of times our attractions clients only want prices to go up, so the minimum price might be what the start price is, which is the next column, the base price. So base price would be what this ticket went on sale for when it was initially available. Then the current price will show you what is currently being sold for in the marketplace. And then the new price is our recommendation for during this review cycle. And so some of this information is contained down here below. So we have a price change history graph that shows you the number of sales that have happened at each day and price point over time. The red dot represents today's price recommendation. Now, at this point, you can do three things with our recommendation. You can accept it, and if you accept it and save the changes, then the new price will be pushed in the Galaxy at the time is determined for updating prices. You can reject it and do nothing, and if you reject it and do nothing, it will stay. Prices will stay at the current price. Or you'll notice when I've hit reject, this override dialog box is opened up, and you can put in whatever price that you want to put into the dialog box. And I'm going to put in an override price, and I'll show you the safety feature. So I purposefully went outside the min and max bounds that are set for this price, and it warns you that you're outside those bounds. A lot of times, and I'll say, well, I don't want it to actually do that. So, but you can override it even if it's outside the min and max. We're constrained to making our recommendations within that. but you can override it to go beyond that. But it's really a safety feature. If you, let's say, wanted to make this ticket $15, but you accidentally put in, you left the 1 off and made it $5, it will warn you that you're now below your constraint. So it's just a safety feature to keep you from putting in a price that you don't want to put in. But I'm going to go ahead and just accept this recommendation. And you'll notice in this detailed view, you don't have to close this and then click on the detailed view the next day. There is a next button that you can click on. And then this shows you, you also have Orchid Nights. So we can price multiple ticket types for a day if that's what you want. We can also do it as a derivative. So if you have ticket types that are tied together, if the adult price is this, then these other ticket types follow a certain % off or a dollar amount off. We can do that, but we can also price things independently. So whatever you have highlighted here shows you the price change history below and the sales that have happened at that different type, and you can accept or reject. And let's just say we're going to reject the daily adult price, but we'll accept the Orchid Nights price. We'll save that. And you'll notice now that we're in the second day, there's a previous button that allows you to go back to the previous day, but you can go do your entire review within the detailed view, looking at the recommendations and doing that. And I'm going to close out of this really quickly to show you that now these first 2 days in the review cycle that I did complete an action on, save or an accept or a reject, and then saving those now show as status is reviewed. If those were the only 2 days that you wanted to review in this price cycle, then you're done. You can let it time out. You can go down and publish, click the publish button at the bottom of the page to complete the review. We normally recommend just letting it time out, especially if you have a future time for when prices update into Gateway. There's no reason to finish the review until the end of the day. That way, if something changes, if you're going to have an exhibit closed or some other kind of issue that you find out about later in the day, you can go back in and adjust, prices accordingly if you need to. But that's one of the ways that a review can be done. And we try to make it as simple as possible. But now at this point, if you didn't do anything else, all these other recommendations at the countdown timeout would be rejected, and these 2 days that you have reviewed would be pushed into and changed into Gateway. So with your default setting of reject unreviewed, that's what happens there. If you move to accept unfinished, that just means that all recommendations would be approved and pushed into Gateway at the timeout, even if no one on your side has looked at it. Obviously, we recommend at the beginning that you keep it on reject unfinished. That way, you don't have any prices going out there that you haven't looked at. It's entirely up to you how you do that. You also have the ability in this detailed view, you don't have to click individual boxes in the detailed view and click save. You can simply scroll through the different days and say, yeah, you know what, we're okay with all these recommendations. And then back on this default view, you can simply click on the days that you want to make the changes on and click accept or reject and confirm that, and you'll now see that the status is showing as reviewed for all these other days. So we try to make it as simple as possible and as user-friendly as possible, but that's the basic idea of how you do a review with our price recommendations, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
So I got a couple quick ones. I see you have a column there called event. Is that event the same thing as what we call events in Gateway ticketing?
It should be. I mean, it's the day that you're open, so it could be, or Chris Brashears, I'll let you speak to that if you can answer that question about how it's named in Gateway versus how we put it here. Generally, the event just means the day that we're making the prices change recommendations for, and then individual events that you have them in Gateway might actually be what we're calling price level or ticket types in the detailed view.
Yeah,
so just a bit of background.
Sure. Go ahead, Bill.
So our GLOW event, we have entry times on 15-minute intervals. Each of those are thought to be events with capacities in Gateway ticketing. And one of the things that we might have an opportunity on is to try to incent people to attend in the later hours of the evening as opposed to the early hours of the evening. So that would be pricing differences within a day based on the entry time.
Yeah. So we could
In
do,
order to manage that level of detail, I guess we would have a line for each of the 15-minute intervals per day.
to make it simpler for you, we could set up a different pricing group that is strictly for glow events. And so you would have your normal daily group that has admissions, and we can have another pricing group for that. But the way I would recommend it, and obviously we're flexible and we could set it up different ways, is that for each day of that, we would just set up the detailed view for that day to be the different entry times here, and then you could look at all the different entry times in one place for a particular day.
And then on the gateway side, when we push prices back, that price file, as I mentioned, contains on each row a PLU, a price, and the date time range when that price is valid. So we could have, we don't have to know the event identifiers. We just have to be able to say this PLU during this time period, and that can be as narrow as a 15-minute time period. The price is this.
Okay. So to manage this for just general admission, do the general admission tickets, which currently are not events in gateway ticketing, do those need to become events so that they're discrete to a day?
That's probably a more appropriate question for gateway, but my presumption is yes.
Okay. I'm good.
All right.
Thanks.
Good. Was there another question? Okay, good. So in terms of kind of, hopefully this helps answer some questions. If it would be helpful, we have some examples of clients that we work with, as well as some upcoming installations that we're doing, some with Gateway, some with not. We can talk a little bit about the Cincinnati Zoo and their holiday lights. I'm happy to do that, as well as a few others as well. Would that be helpful? Go through a couple case studies?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Great. All right. Let me change presenter to me. Okay. Share. All right. So let's just go through a few of these. Hold it. Okay. Come on, computer. There we go. So the first one, let's go to I don't know why this is not showing. Because I want to, because it's hidden. Okay. There we go. Okay. So the first one is let's just talk about Cincinnati Zoo. So for them, their theme was they wanted to maximize revenue for their Festival of Lights, and for them, it's a very, very critical part of in their revenue mix every year. It really kind of each year it brings in their year. So in previous years, and I don't know if it's the same with Garden Glow, but for them, they had a sponsor, and that sponsor actually supported their Monday through Wednesday nights for that first 3 weeks, and those were half price tickets. They lost that sponsor, and so therefore the half price program was eliminated for 2018. So they came to us. Obviously, just like it is in St. Louis, for them, weather is can be challenging, and so they hired us to mitigate and compensate for that lost sponsorship, and then also optimize the pricing and really kind of help drive traffic to different days. So their attendance for this year, they were up 7% in attendance. Their revenue was up 27% versus the previous year. And then based on the success of the program, they are going to, like I said, they're adopting dynamic pricing year round for us. So it was a big success, and we worked really closely with Gateway. It was a very, very quick, and Chris can attest to this. It was probably the quickest onboarding that we ever did. But we worked really, really closely with the Gateway team to get this implemented. And I think from the time the agreement was signed to when we went live was, I think, 3 weeks, which we would never, number one, and typically endorse that, and certainly wouldn't want to set that as an expectation. But I think my point here is that how closely we work with the Gateway team and collaborated with them, and worked closely with Jared at Cincinnati Zoo to get this up and going. Okay. So just a couple others is the Indianapolis Zoo, which, so they're going on their 6th year with us now. But I think the biggest highlights for them are, their revenue impact. If you look at this 2010 through 2013, this was before dynamic pricing, and then this is after and since launching dynamic pricing. I think the headline here is the sustainability of the revenue. Really, the revenue and the attendance is really the new normal from pre-dynamic pricing, and even in their first year, where they had a tremendous amount of demand because they had a new exhibit, their revenue, their weekend to weekday attendance shifted 10%. So where it was like 43% were coming on Saturdays and Sundays, it actually went to 33% going on Saturdays and Sundays, and that 10% going to other days, and their attendance actually grew that year. And again, their admission, like you guys are at $12 right now, they were at $17.95, and now they're at a price range of anywhere from $8.20 all the way to $29.95. All right. And so with and again, they are on Gateway. They use Double Knot as their online, but they're on Gateway. And then the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. I think the headline with this is we're able to shift objectives and goals for our clients. So for the first year with the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, their primary goal was to make sure that they were accessible to lower income families. So they hired us to help them with an accessibility strategy. So it worked well. They saw their household incomes between 35 to 65,000 increasing when they launched dynamic pricing. In 2018, those objectives shifted because they had a really big investment with a big outdoor exhibit. And so it shifted to revenue maximization. So the algorithm shifted to revenue maximization. So as you can see, it was a very successful year for them. And their admission, when they started, it was $22.95, and now their price range is $16 to $35. But they had an increase of about 18% year over year. So, and then the next one is Florida Aquarium. They do a lot of tourist traffic, and they started in August with us. So it's still early in the game with them. They're actually on Altru. They're not on Gateway, but their attendance was plus 7%, and their general admission revenue was up about 25% versus the previous year. And then this one is interesting. It's Natural Bridge Cavern, so it's they're on Gateway, and so I think the headline for them last year was mitigating a revenue loss they had an unexpected downward term in attendance. And I don't know if there's anybody on the call that was at the UGM last year, but if you remember Aaron Potter talking about this, so they really looked at dynamic pricing as a way to mitigate the impact of unexpected revenue decline, unexpected attendance loss. So their attendance was down about 10%, yet their revenue for their tours has been flat. And so I think their thought is where if they were still using a static pricing model, they had this unexpected downward turn in attendance, the revenue would also be down 10%, but that wasn't the case. The revenue was flat. Their average prices of ticket went up $4, and their online sales have also gone up from 4% to 14% too. So again, a different kind of case study, but I think just what I wanted to highlight was there are going to be years where perhaps there is going to be attendance going down. So how can pricing help kind of mitigate that? Now this is an upcoming thing that we're doing, and this is with the Houston Zoo. They're on Gateway as well. They're actually Gateway Double Knot, but they've retained us to do their zoo lights. It's a big part of their revenue each year, and so they hired us for revenue maximization and then smoothing attendance. We have another upcoming one with the Banff Gondola. Banff is I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but they're a huge tourist destination in Canada. They do about 4 million tourists a year that go to Banff. And then the gondola is probably, one of the biggest attractions they have there. And so it's going live in mid-April. They're currently doing off-peak pricing. And then they're going to be transitioning to dynamically pricing, so by times of day. They want to maximize revenue, smooth attendance, and also there's going to be a distinction between local and tourist, especially in the off season. So I thought that might be helpful to see that. And then Cal Academy, and they actually were on Gateway. They've gone to a different ticketing system, but they're going to be going live in mid-May. We're going to be pricing their general admission, as well as they have a Thursday night event every month, and we'll also be pricing that. So we're doing an event for them monthly, as well as overall pricing their general admission. So hopefully that's helpful, just to give you guys some examples of things that we're currently working on and things that are coming up in our pipeline as well. So that's what I have for right now. What kind of questions do you guys have?
Mine would be, the revenue growth. Obviously, there's some expense with doing, those conversions from Gateway and seats and bringing those things online.
Yeah.
How does that play into that gross revenue, as far as the net's concerned?
So you're talking about it. So the numbers that I showed you, if I understand your question correctly, are those before or after our fees?
Yeah.
So a net. So everything that I showed you is gross. So it's not. We did not factor out our fees after that. But that's one of the things, Jay, that with the opportunity analysis, and let me see if let me unhide this one, that we can provide is, so, one of the things that we talked about is, at our last call, Jay, is it's a very simplified analysis and a preliminary projection of a few things where we would look at a price range for that to work with for all the different things that you would sell. We would look at the start price distribution. So where do the prices initially start? And then the gate price distribution of what's the walk-up price, what would that be, and how many days. And our clients really find that particularly helpful to kind of visualize dynamic pricing. And then from there, we're able to provide a revenue impact. So what do we anticipate the impact to be with general admission? And then from there, we can factor in, I think going into your question, is what a net ROI would be based on our fees. And so I think, if on Bill's side, you're comfortable with the technical part of this, at least to go to this next step of doing this opportunity analysis, which part of our process, there's no cost to that, then I think that would be the next step. But I think part of it is, Bill, is this, are there any unanswered questions that you have in terms of the technical integration on this?
So I think Jay's asking the right question about the business case for moving forward, and I think the opportunity analysis would give us some insight to that. Technically, I would imagine we've got gateway ticketing work to do as well. So I don't know how you bundle up the entire effort, or are you just talking, when you do the opportunity analysis, do you just look at the Digonex side of the equation? Presumably.
Cost-wise, the gateway implementation of the interface, they bill that hourly through their services team.
Yeah. So for us to implement it, there is going to be a gateway cost as well. So.
Yeah, Chris, do you have any just historically what the gateway work is?
Neither they nor our clients have shared that with me. My outsider perception of it is I don't think it's too much. I would guess it's in the low tens of hours. That's only an educated guess. Harry, you might that might be a good question to ask your contacts on the sales team over at Gateway.
Yeah. And so
I think
you guys know too is I work. So Kelly, who I think is Kelly and Randy. I saw them a couple weeks ago. They knew we were having this meeting. So they're aware of this. Now I don't know who your day-to-day account manager is. For the Cincinnati Zoo, who do we work? Chris Izzo is who we worked with. So I don't know.
I believe BSM, Business Solutions Manager, is the term they use.
Right.
At Gateway. Do you know who yours is? Have you one?
Yeah, it's Kelly. Is our business services.
Okay.
And that's what we're looking at right now is looking at our bundle for the year. And, in those bundles that they do, they kind of let you slice it up a couple of different ways, service hours and, user group meetings and learning subscriptions. So if it was one of those things where I knew the estimated number of hours that it's taken some other jobs, it might be something we would factor in that bundle to, throw in there with our annual contract.
Yep. Jay, I think if it's just a matter of them implementing some stored procedures and stuff, it wouldn't be very bad. But if this work provides some insight that causes us to want to restructure the way we're doing some things, that's kind of the wild card for gateway ticketing cost. We'll have to figure out if any of those impacts show up, and then consequently, what help do we need from them to execute them, if any.
Okay.
Like, the one example might be if we take our garden admission tickets and all of a sudden they all have to be event-based, then there's a piece of work to do that. And then...
Yeah.
Okay.
So, So I think, and Jay, we can talk about this, but if we want to, look at kind of the next step of this would be the opportunity analysis. You and I can kind of figure out offline. I can tell you exactly what we need, and I'd recommend doing probably Garden Glow and general admission. We could talk about exactly what it is you want to do, but and then we can figure out from there. But I'll provide you. There's like a specific worksheet that Marat Atlamaz, who's our chief economist, that he in the way that he wants to see it. I mean, it's a very simple Excel spreadsheet, but it would just be a matter of just filling in the data. And so I can share that with you after the meeting.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth doing that exercise and seeing what it takes to complete it and get us something that we have some hard numbers to look at, particularly at that estimated ROI. We've got to factor in those gateway costs as well. So, absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, good. I'll be in touch with you after this. And Bill or anybody else on the technical side, any questions? Was this helpful?
No, it was good to see it in action in its modern rendition.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Bill, we were excited to show it to you after 2 years. All right. Thank you.
Very good.
All right. Take
Thanks.
care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.